Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I want to start off with a story. I was 8 years old, and my father decided to take me on an outing. It wasn't an ordinary outing. I was 8 years old, living in a small town, and my dad said, "Today is a big day, my boy. I'm going to take you to a bank." And so off we went to the bank. This is the same bank that my parents have been using, my grandparents were using cumulatively for over 60 years. And we went to the bank, and at the bankers seemed to know my parents. They seemed to share stories. We had coffee. They gave me those baker's biscuits. I remember having that pink biscuit, and still to this day, that's my favorite. And I remember that day, I opened my first account. And with that account, I got a card. And if any of you are like me, I grew up as a child of the 80s. I was part of the Bob Tea generation, except that bank wasn't the same bank that had Bob Tea. But at that time, all you got was a card, and all that card could do was give you cash. And so what was really important, more important than the card, more important than the bank that you had, was your wallet. And so after going to the bank, I said, "Dad, please, can you take me to go get a wallet?" And that wallet was the one that had the right style. And for those that remember the right style, that was the story. And so here's the story, and that's why we gathered here today, is about banking of the future. Because do you think what happened to me, happened to you, happened with your parents, but is that happening with our kids and with the youth of this generation? If you had to fast forward maybe 10, 15 years, when I got my first mobile contract, when I got my first phone and I got my first contract, did the story repeat itself? Yes, because I've spent 25 years with my mobile network. And so cumulatively, I feel like I've been, and specifically when I look at my bank, I've been at the same bank that my parents have been, my grandparents have been, and it's almost cumulatively 90 years. And so the question is, will my kids be banking at the same bank as I have, my parents and my grandparents? And so before I spoil the plot and before we give away everything that's coming today, I just want to tell you a little bit about us. So let's talk about us. What gets us out of bed in the morning is that core belief that we create opportunities that influence your future positively. We're all about uplifting youth. We've been doing it for 20 years. And we know that when we uplift youth, we uplift your brand, and we uplift your company, and we uplift society. And so really what we do is we connect brands to youth and youth to brands. And we do that in 3 ways. We help you to understand their preferences, their mindset, and their thinking, just like we're doing today with Banking for the Future. We've spent 20 years developing our networks and relationships and influences on the ground. And so we help you to access and engage them in relevant ways. And then the third thing, which is really dear to our heart, is we have many social upliftment programs that help uplift youth. And so really what we do as a company is we're all about connecting futures, because we believe really deeply that if youth do well, we all do well. And so coming back to why we're here today with Banking for the Future is that with the rise of technology has given rise to innovation. With the rise to innovation has given us much more choice. And with more choice has changed our preferences on how we bank and how we do things. And it's not just about banking, it's about everything. And so as things change and change rapidly, so to come as no surprise to you that my kids are banking at a different bank. Is it the same for you? Is it the same for your kids? So the one thing that we can be sure of is this generation is going to do things differently. And this is where I'm going to end now. And I'm going to invite my insights guy, Sechaba Selo, to take it from here.
Thanks so much for that intro, Ro. Hi, everyone. My name is Sechaba, and I do insights at Student Village. I want you to imagine a world that is fast-paced and ever-changing, where there's so much disruption taking place from apps that are rising. what we decided to do is to ask all of these burning questions that our clients have to specific students, well, to the youth and students as a whole. We took these questions and put them on polls across our social media platforms, and over 400 students responded. We then took it a step further to try and unpack more of the gems that couldn't be covered in the poll questions that were asked on social media. We had about 8 focus groups, and in total we had over 80 students that participated. In those focus groups, the ages ranged from 18 to 25, and some of the participants were students, others were almost in their final year, and some of them were also young professionals. And what we saw and what we gathered is that this research was qualitative and not quantitative. And it's because of that we were able to find all of the different insights that we're going to be sharing with you guys today. So let's get into it with the first chat and the first chop that we want to speak about, which is money. Think of it like a relationship, and that's how the youth view relationships with money. It's not necessarily a monogamous one, but let's get into what we mean by that. First of all, this is Generation Ys. So in our previous research, we spoke about brand me and, things always being about me, and how that's shifted to being about brand we, where we saw that the youth are actually supporting each other. Now what we're seeing is that this is a generation of wise youth. They're a lot more wiser about their spending and saving decisions, and also want to be a lot more informed before making those decisions. My first chop is about money. Let's have a chat around money and the views around it. We asked, how is their feeling towards different kinds of bank brands and that sort of thing? And the first thing that we gathered, which is an overarching theme, is that this generation is Gen Ys. In our previous research or previous student spend study, we found that it was all about brand me, right? And then afterwards, it was about brand we, where we saw that the youth is actually cooperating with one another. They're supporting each other and boosting each other to do better. The next point that we found is that not one bank can satisfy my needs. Students have an interesting relationship with banks, that they want to be able to use the banks to play to their strengths. So for example, if a bank's got good transaction fees, that's the bank that they're solely going to use for their transactions. If they've got good interest rates in terms of savings, that's where they're going to save. Another interesting thing that came about is how they're using those specific accounts with the different banks. We had one insight come through that a student will prefer to have, will actually not use their savings account or the bank that they save with to make online purchases, because that's saving suicide in their opinion. The next thing that we found out was around credit and how students feel about it. They're actually credit conscious. They've witnessed how their parents have been burned by credit and debt and that kind of thing, and they're having a different kind of approach to it by finding out more information to be able to make better decisions when it comes to credit. We then asked around banking and also, the kinds of bank brands that come up quite a lot, and also what brings it all together. What is the easiest bank to be using? What are your experiences with particular banks? And one bank that came up was Time Bank. The interesting thing about Time Bank that came up was that the youth finds it very easy to interact with Time Bank in particular, from opening up an account, which is super easy, to being able to withdraw from different ATMs with one set fee. So it's that kind of ease and convenience that really came up around banking. So we've spoken about that, right? Now, think about this. When last did you see one of these? So we're in a crazy time right now. There's something that's going on that's affecting the entire world, that's affecting how we spend money, all our day-to-day activities. And cashless 19 is actually a real thing. That is what we're experiencing. It's a pandemic on its own. Let's unpack the whole notion of cashless 19. The first thing and the first insight that we saw is that one of our panelists, our youth panelists, had said that they can't even remember the last time that they saw a banknote, which was so interesting because it's almost as if there's been a shift. Let's unpack that a bit more. In our previous research, we saw that online shopping had increased to 64%, which is so interesting because before that, it was way less. It speaks to a shift in the spending that took place, from hand to hand and then moving to online. But another thing that we saw is that cash is actually risky business. This is the general feeling that we found in the focus groups, that the approach to actually spending cash is becoming less and less because it doesn't necessarily feel safe to even visit the ATM. it feels a lot safer to be paying off of your phone or any sort of internet device. But where does that leave other forms of payment? Toby van Zyl, one of the founders of Better Bank, mentioned that the traditional banking model is about to evaporate, and that is where the future of banking is looking. And if you were to look at the shift from cash to online to what I'm going to mention next, that's definitely about to take place. The last point I wanted to mention is that it's actually a battle between the Crips and the Bloods. Think about the hip hop beefs, right? With the cryptos being people that are really behind cryptocurrencies. They are for it, they stand by it, they fully understand it, and that's what that's what they want to go about from day to day. And you have the Bloods, who are the people that aren't really keen or don't really feel safe about it, or actually don't know as much about it as the others. So I think we can foresee a shift, just like there was a shift in terms of spending with physical money to online. So we've spoken about this, and now we want to see how it looks when it comes to interacting online with the different apps that you're using. And the first app that comes up the most is definitely Twitter. Twitter gets shit done. And the interesting thing around this topic was we asked the focus groups, how is it that they handle their disputes? Where is it? Do they go to throw the toys out the cots when they've got a problem with a brand or anything in particular? And Twitter has been seen to be a lot more efficient than calling in or visiting a branch and that kind of thing, which is super interesting in this context because it speaks around that ease. Students are definitely chasing convenience. So if it's convenient for me to just, do something quickly or to be communicating via an app, then I'm definitely going to do that. Another thing around apps, especially banking apps, is that when asked, we saw that the F&B app is as close as you're going to get to Jesus in terms of apps, because the user interface and the usability is so simple and straightforward. Everything you need is right in front of you. And the youth actually enjoyed this. This is what we got from our feedback. The next point that we found is that e-hail is king. We asked what are the top 3 apps that are on everyone's phones, and Uber Eats, as well as Mr. D Food came out on top. Now, this speaks to this quick delivery and the rise of e-commerce and how the spending behaviors are changing and shifting more and more towards that convenience we spoke about earlier. But I want to touch on something that's really, I feel really close and really amazing to see the growth from when it started to where it is now. And that's definitely Instagram. Instagram has come a long way from being just a photo sharing app. It's come a long way from just being flexing on what you're wearing on that day. It's really become this entire user journey from seeing something to having it in your hand. Although it hasn't necessarily been picked up fully in South Africa for that operation, but what you can instantly do on Instagram is to view a product that you like, select it, and then shop, place the purchase, and then place an order for delivery. And we can definitely see it moving in that direction with the possibilities that apps are able to do now. Think of the rise of Instapreneurs and Instagram boutiques and all of these types of ways that people are making their own money through Instagram. The question is, how is it that those are being paid for? Is it via EFT? Is it via cash? Or is it via e-wallet? This takes us to the next step, or something that was really prominent in our focus groups, that digital wallets or mobile and digital wallets are really picking up in massive ways. And it's not just reduced, or it's not just for banks to be able to produce for people to use. So the head of e-wallet product at FNB said that the transaction volumes had increased immensely since the beginning of lockdown, which is incredible. It really speaks to that shift from cash to people using digital wallets in order to get money across, which is really interesting. Another thing, if you're thinking about all of the rise of Instapreneurs and Instagram boutiques, is that this is all about hustle fuel. Everyone that has, most of the people that have their side hustles, they find it easier to be able to receive or send funds through mobile or digital wallets, such as e-wallets. The next point is that, and it also goes around ease, is that there's a feeling that it's now becoming a sense of replacement for the EFT. One student mentioned that they'd prefer to pay via e-wallet because you're just sending to a phone number and not necessarily to this long digit account number and needing to figure out what the branch code is or what the type of account is. So a lot of the ease and convenience is still coming through in this time. Last but not least, and what we saw is that it's not restricted to one bank. So different banks have these different offerings in terms of sending mobile money. And what's also interesting to find is that MTN had launched a product in January that's around mobile money. So we should definitely be on the lookout for that. The next point that we want to speak around is insurance, right? So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have naked pineapples or if you do things my way. What we can be assured about is that certain things are going to go first for women or in any other way. And that's what our feeling is around insurance. We asked the youth what they feel about it. And the main topic that came up is that insurance is associated with adulting. And for your junior students, they're not really concerned with adulting. I mean, it's like, it's really out of mind, and a lot of their actions are, or a lot of their decisions are based on the short term. So junior students won't really be thinking about those long-term results, or won't necessarily be thinking about long-term insurance. Firstly, because they're not in a place of employment, and also because they also don't feel that they don't have enough valuables to go ahead and insure. Your more senior students are more likely to think that way, and also your young professionals as well. The next thing that came up was around startups. So startups feel a lot more human. They feel a lot more fresh. And the thinking around this, or what we'd gathered, is that they've applied, well, startups such as your Naked Insurance and Pineapple Insurance, they've really approached a new way of thinking and gathering that kind of information, or interacting with their consumer or with their customers. And the interesting thing around that is that because they feel that way, that's why they're a lot more appealing. The next point that we found is that it's all about whatever's clever. Two types of insurers that came up, especially for mobile devices, was Cellshore, provided by Vodacom, and Finrite, I think, that's provided by Edgar's. And the interesting thing around those is that at the time that someone in the youth is getting their phone, then that is the option that is presented to them at the time. And it's the most convenient because it's there at the time without having to look any further. So the whole thinking of like whatever's clever and whatever's happening right now is the most convenient is the journey that you want to necessarily go on. Last but not least, Momentum asked an amazing question that we shared with the focus group. And they wanted to know what are the three main things, or they wanted to know what is the most important things that are there for the youth. Is it providing for your family, living life to the full, or making sure that you have everything secure and having a balance of all of the above? And the answer was the same throughout. The answer was that students yearn for a balance of everything, just as much as you want to balance, good times and just as you want to balance partying and work, you also want to be able to balance everything that's above, how your family is going to be, what your future is looking like, and also living in the moment. So imagine you're walking into this large candy store or froyo store, right? And you've got a big bowl just filled with frozen yogurt. And as you look around you, you just see all of these toppings. That is how the youth feel about telcos. The students and the youth in general, they don't want options. Well, they don't want commitments. They want options. So think of all of those options of all of those toppings. That's how they feel, which is a pretty similar thinking to their approach to banking. They'll walk in and they'll want to be able to benefit as much as possible, even if it means having multiple sources. What we've seen is that in some cases, the youth will have more than one SIM card from a different service provider. Hence the first point coming up, that Vodacom is actually seen as the Santon of all mobile networks. Let's let that simmer for a bit. Why do they feel that way? Do they feel that it's expensive? Look, it is a bit pricey in their eyes, but that price is validated because it's a premium service. It feels premium, which also leads to the next point that speaks about Telkom's undisputed data deals. One of the students mentioned that they love the fact that Telkom breaks down the data that it gives you. So you'll be purchasing a certain amount of data, and then it comes with an additional amount for streaming or an additional amount for social media. So to have all of that information, even though the coverage isn't that great, in their opinion, is a big plus, and that's why they'll go for it. Another thing is this payment pecking order. We've seen that certain networks are offering more services that are outside of telecommunications. So the general approach to that is that what you trust and what you go with is where we'll definitely be leading towards. So around this whole thing of the blurred lines, it actually makes you want to ask a question. Who's actually eating whose lunch? The comparison between telcos and banks, you might actually feel like you're starting to speak about the same thing because of the behaviors and also with the new frontiers that they're reaching. Let's unpack this for a little bit. We're in a stage of what we'd like to call financial fluidity. And in this financial fluidity, we're seeing that telcos as well as banks are stepping outside of what they do daily, if we can say. We have the potential of banks becoming telcos and the potential of telcos becoming banks. Think of FNB that's offering the FNB Connect, or think of Vodacom that's also offering insurance for its phones, or think of MTN that's offering mobile money. So it's in all of these ways that these brands are actually stepping outside of what they're doing in order to reach more. Is this an opportunity to eat someone else's lunch, or are you just growing your brand? It would be very interesting to see how that's perceived and received by the youth of South Africa. But let's take this even a step further. Can you imagine if you can have one major app, right? And in this app, you can merge all of your preferences, just like a Swiss knife on your phone, okay? Swiss Army knife on your phone. The first thing that you'd need to conquer is managing that ease and that trust for your brand. If you have both of those things, then we're going to be able to create magic. Then you've got everyone or the youth on board. The next thing is that you need to be able to merge all of your preferences into one. Imagine opening up this app and being able to find your banking needs all sorted, your insurance needs all sorted, and also your telecoms needs sorted. Imagine this can all come in together into one agnostic app, which would merge this whole journey into oneness. Because at this stage, we're actually on, this is actually the age of personalization. You'd want something that is unique to you and that feels so easy and simple to use. Okay. So let's jump into some key takeaways. It's just going to be a bit of a summary around everything that we've covered today, and also leaving some room for what's going to be covered in our Q&A session coming up right after this. The first thing is that this is generation wise. These guys are super wise and they know exactly what's up. They've learned from the past and they're making better decisions from what they've seen. One bank can't satisfy my needs. The youth is using banks to play to their strengths, hence having more than one bank account with different banks. The youth is credit conscious. They're aware of how their parents and guardians got burned by credit, and they're making better decisions in that regard. Cash is actually a throwback. We're in cashless 19, and the move from cash onto online and then to crypto it's an amazing thing to see, and we can't wait for what's coming in the future. Twitter gets shit done. It's actually starting to replace call centers because of how effective it is and how quickly things get done on Twitter. E-wallet is super easy and it's replacing the EFT, and that goes for digital wallets or all digital wallets as well. Just that e-wallets came out on top in terms of preferences amongst the youth. Startups get me. They feel more human. They feel more fresh. And another thing is that they have a new kind of thinking that appeals to people. The next part is that students are chasing convenience and ease, and that is the notion and that is the thought that is going throughout our entire presentation, that once you have that ease, then you'll be able to create magic. We then spoke about telcos versus bank and how, not necessarily how the roles are being reversed, but how the roles are being extended to be able to do more and step outside of those boundary lines. And we also spoke about adulting light and the approach to insurance from junior students to senior students and even young professionals. I want to share a couple of quotes that came through from the focus groups. I rent out my streaming platforms to make extra cash. This student in particular has about 4 streaming platforms, and what she does, she rents them out monthly in order to make that money back and also to have money on the side, which shows how money-wise she really is, and them in general. Students are also prepared to pay for value. Think of Vodacom being the Samsung of networks. If you're looking for that premium feel, you're willing to pay premium or top dollar. Another point that came from one of our groups, from a young professional, they mentioned that King Price didn't ask any questions when they were signing up for insurance, and that's why he went with them. And it's also pretty interesting speaking about that ease and touching base on that convenience that is also felt and what we want to go through with. Crypto's time is coming. There was this feeling around online purchasing being unsafe, but now here's another way, which is crypto, and with all the apps that are available in order to invest in crypto and also to be able to use it to spend. Lastly, imagine if everything can come in to one as an agnostic app, one app in order to complete everything so that you can feel that you're more in touch with the world than you've ever been. And that's how we think banking in the future is going to work. So thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate your time. And at this moment, we've actually got a live Q&A session with our student panel. So we're going to cut to them as they're ready to go. Oh, what's happening, guys? What's going on? What is going on? Are you guys good? Dope.
Lovely, man. I'm nice.
That's dope.
We're good, bro. We're good.
Let's hop into the first question, yeah? The first one, how often do you guys use data and airtime transfer? We can go with Sarah and then KZN Dogozo.
A transfer, what do you mean? Like, just how often do we use data in general?
Yeah, so data transfers and airtime transfers, like when you're transferring them maybe from a number to number or when you're receiving it.
Oh, okay. All the time.
Okay.
I think the world we're living in at the moment, if you don't have data or someone's not sending you data, it's a little hard to get anything done. So on a daily basis, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dope. Thanks for that. Dogozo?
Yeah. I'd have to agree with Sarah. That's literally one of the main reasons why my banking fees are so high on a monthly basis. Like my statement's crazy. Because I'm always transferring data and stuff.
Yeah.
On my app. Yeah, so it's a big part of the reason why I have a banking app.
Cool. I got the next question for Dakaro and other than Dogozo. How do you guys feel about cryptocurrencies?
Oh, well, for me, the thing is like with cryptocurrencies is because like I'm into like photography and really working with like my hands and, you know, living hand to mouth, I'm not really that invested into cryptocurrencies because of the mere fact that I don't understand it, you know. But I've been seeing a lot of like hullabaloo around cryptocurrency, that is the next best thing that we should all invest in. But, you know, from like a standpoint where I'm looking at it, I feel like I'm still just trying to get normal currency. You know what I mean? Just trying to get that normal current situation right before I can look into cryptocurrency and other currencies. You know what I mean? Just the regular Madibs first.
I got you. Regular Madibs, I got you there. Yeah?
Same here with me. I'm not so familiar with it yet, so I can't really say much about it, to be honest.
Got you. All right, cool. Let's hop on to the next question. Stepping into the student world, what are the top of mind requirements in terms of needs and challenges? So I'll throw it out to anyone to answer.
Please repeat that again.
Yeah, sure. So when you're stepping into the student world, right? What are some of the things that come top of mind in terms of your needs and your challenges? What are the first things that you're thinking of?
Money, of course.
Money.
All right.
We were just chatting about data. So like at varsity, having access to the internet is like one of the most important things because varsities are now mostly running through an online basis or whatever. Like that's where you get all your material and everything.
Yeah.
So data and then money, I guess, for things like rent and food.
True.
Okay. Got you.
I think like overall, like one of the biggest challenges as students that we face is like finding employment with whatever it is that you studied, you know, because a bunch of times a lot of people study stuff that like, and it's hard to find a job afterwards. And then you kind of go into a slump because like I've been going at this for like 3-4 years for me to be chilling at home for like 6-8 months without a job. You know, it does something to your mental health really. So I think like just like finding a job, just being well off to, you know what I'm saying, to be able to be able to pay rent, pay for food, you know what I mean? Live your life, man, you know what I mean? You can't even job without money, man. Yeah,
I think one of the key challenges as a student. I think a lot of people don't realize how expensive it is to be a student, apart from just your tuition fees and stuff.
Yeah.
Being a student on a day-to-day basis is very expensive.
Yeah.
And obviously you need to find a way to balance that and also have a social life. And that becomes very, very costly. And I think a lot of students need to start adapting to saving as well. It's one of the key challenges of students. Students don't really save a lot of money.
I got you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, guys. We've got a question here from Natasha. What are the drivers and barriers of brand loyalty when the youth are making purchase decisions? Or is it the concept of brand loyalty a thing of the past generations? So Dakaro, you can go first, and then we'll have Sarah up next.
Sorry, please repeat that.
Yeah, sure.
So I got distracted a bit. I'm sorry.
Batung, Dakaro. But anyway, what are the drivers?
I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. What are the drivers and barriers of brand loyalty when the youth are making purchase decisions? So when you guys are making purchase decisions, what drives you, like via brand loyalty and that sort of thing? Let's start with that question. Are you loyal to brands?
For me, I don't know. Loyalty for me with the brand, firstly, is durability, Yeah. That's what drives me to like sort of buy something. I look at the durability of the product. Is the product worth it or not? And also sometimes is the hype behind that particular product. So for example, if I'm buying something from, let's just say Foschini, for example, I need to look at the hype to see if the product is worth it, who's buying it, who influenced it, and so forth. So, but I also think it's a thing of the past, because these days we just buy for the sake of buying or because Dagilolo influenced me to buy that sort of product. So, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Sarah, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, for me, I guess like I'm loyal to brands that have a good price. But besides that, I do think it's a thing of the past. Like for me, or not necessarily a thing of the past, but a thing of, I think a lot of people our age are trying to be more South African focused, like South African products and companies and whatever, trying to be loyal to those products. But then that marketing is not necessarily out there as much as like the Western world or whatever. So I know from my side, I do a lot of like thrift buying and whatever. So as not to promote capitalism. I don't want to sound like a huge like political but you know what I mean? Like, just trying to support local brands as much as possible.
Got you. Let's move on to the next question. And I'd like for everyone to answer this. We'll start with Dogozo, and then we'll go to Sarah, then Dakaro. What is the easiest way to pay for you guys? Is it EFT, cash, or digital wallet?
I feel like that question is kind of a tricky question because also it depends on like what you're buying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for me personally, I believe like cash is the best way to pay for things because I don't trust EFTs and buying over the internet and stuff like that because, network might be bad, something might happen, they might phish you or scam you. So always buying it cash and having it at the same time is always the easiest to me because it's like one-stop shop and you get what you need and you get out, you know what I mean?
I feel you. All right, cool.
But because now of the world we're living in, we're forced to adapt to buying things at EFT levels and stuff like that. But cash is always the best because, you get it same time. There's no waiting. There's no, like, you know what I mean, network or whatever. Just cash one way.
Cool. Yeah?
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I would say if it's person to person, I prefer cash wallets because they're an easy transaction, but you also have a record of that transaction in case someone tries to dispute later on that you paid them their money. You're like, nah, I did, bro. But if it's large sums, I do prefer that those happen via EFT. Once again, just to keep that record that I have made that transaction with you. That money has moved from my account to yours.
Cool. I just want to hop in there. There's a question that came in, but thanks for sharing that. I think it's interesting that you mentioned the difference in the amounts that is going around for larger amounts and smaller amounts. That's very interesting. We've got a question here, and I'll let the ladies answer this one, please. It's from Nontlantla. And the question is, what are the top 3 things you look for in a telco brand as a young person? So what are the top 3 things that you look for in a telco brand? Ladies?
What is a telco brand?
So,
I'm not 100% sure.
So think of like your mobile
telecommunications.
networks. Yeah, telecommunications.
Your
Correct.
what? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know the lingo.
It's all good.
I hate like telephone communications in general. So like,
Okay.
yeah. When
So-
people are calling me, I try to be like the nicest I can, but
Yeah.
like
Same here.
it doesn't work with me.
I hear you.
Same here.
Akaro?
Same here. It also doesn't work for me. I never listen. I always hang up. So,
Okay.
nah, sorry.
I hear you. I think Dogozo, I know you're a bit of a tech guru. Do you want to take that one, bro? How do you feel? What are your top 3 things that you look for?
Oh.
Are there twin Tokozos here?
They are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll let the gentleman go first. Yeah, I'll let the gentleman go first.
Nah, man. Like for me personally, man, like I'm not even that picky. Like I've been with Vodacom for so long, I even hesitate to think of another network.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just me and my character because I've been with Vodacom for so long. Like even though people tell me that this and that is cheaper, it's just like a process to me to even think about what's it called, porting my number and I'll stick with Vodacom, man. I'm not that big on telecommunication rates. So,
Got you. So we'll go to...
If I don't have airtime, I don't have it. You know, if I do, I do. Like,
Got you. Thanks for that, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. We just want to move to the next question. We do have about 3 minutes left, so we want to keep the ball rolling. And for everyone here, I'd need just a 1-word answer. Okay. So what has the strongest influence in your guys' choice of bank? So what makes you choose a particular bank? 1 answer. What makes you guys choose a bank? Reliability.
Oh.
Okay. Price. Okay.
Service.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's a bank.
So what wouldn't differ, like what would make you choose a particular bank? Is it maybe what someone might have told you? Is it, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to know how you feel.
Honestly,
No, like,
service.
I don't know, man. For me, it really has to go with like my employment status. Like, if I'm earning 100,000 to $1 million in a year, I'm definitely gonna go to FNP to get a black card. But I'm not, so I'm chilling at Capital.
All right.
Otherwise, that's the only reason I want to check.
Cool. Got you. So
Let me not even lie to you, man. So let me say employment status.
Okay. Got you. We have one more question that's coming from Nontlantla, and they want to know, data has become currency, right? What do you guys use your data on?
Business, man.
Instagram, Twitter.
Business.
Okay. Instagram, Twitter, we've
Social
got business. Social media. Okay.
Yeah, man. Searching for jobs.
Yeah.
Social media, you know, YouTube, Showmax, everything. Like, data's life. Like, without data, you disconnect.
Data's life.
If this whole fourth industrial revolution thing is real,
Yeah.
data will by far be the most important thing the next 5 years to come. So therefore, I think this also goes back to what you were saying about those telecom companies.
Yeah.
They need to start doing us right.
Yeah.
They've missed the point about what people need on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to just hitting their bottom line in terms of, like, I don't know. I feel like most telecommunication companies now are sort of using data to scam people. And I think it's because there's a lack of market share.
Yeah.
And once bigger companies from the Western countries come through and start offering us cheaper rates for everything, I think they'll wake up then. But data then become the biggest currency apart from just your normal money.
Got you. Brother, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for joining. That's the amount of time that we have for this group. If there are any other questions, let's continue the conversation offline. But thank you so much, guys, for joining. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Be safe.
Anytime.
Wash your hands.
Bye.
Cheers, man.
Sharp.